Welcome to the New York Times Climate Hub. I'm Sebastian Tomich, head of advertising and events for the New York Times. At the Climate Hub, over the next few days, we're going to be hosting business leaders, thought leaders, scientists, and the greater Glasgow community to debate and discuss how we can take actionable climate solutions together. And before I welcome my colleague, Tom Friedman, to the stage, I just want to thank our sponsor, Siemens Energy, for sponsoring this session. And thank you all for attending in person, and for everybody who is dialed in virtually, please submit your questions to the broadcast. Thank you.
Welcome. I'm Tom Friedman. I'm the foreign affairs columnist for the New York Times. We're going to have quite a lively debate for you this afternoon. Thank you all for coming out. Questions up there. Our obsession with technology will slow down the green transition, for or against. Are we obsessed with waiting for carbon capture technology to suck all the carbon out of the atmosphere, put it in the ground, while the world continues to heat up, and we see more and more destructive weather and once-in-a-century storms once a year? Or actually, is it worth shaking the dice, waiting for that technology that can actually give us the scale solution that we need? Or, in waiting for that technology, are we actually making the problem multiple times worse when we should be actually concentrating on doing the hard things we could all be doing as individuals and communities right now? The way our debate's going to be organized, we've got 3 debaters for the proposition, 3 debaters against the proposition. They're each going to have 2-3 minutes to make their case. Then we've got a panel of fantastic judges. We're going to give their comments on each side's performance, and then each team will nominate one member to come up, make their closing arguments, and don't leave, because you are the judges. We will, it's our very scientific method, by asking you to clap for which side is louder, which side wins this debate, we are going to send these people on their way. So I want to welcome up the for and against teams. Come on up, stage. We're going to put we're missing a chair there on the against side. The for side is going to sit here. Oh, sorry, one of our against is going to be virtual, actually. And to kick it off, I'm going to ask Beartron Picard to come up. And Bertrand, you've got 3-4 minutes to make the case. He's the technical advisor to the chairman of Kleiner Perkins. No, that's Ryan, I'm sorry. Bertrand, you're up there. Okay. You're not up there. But anyways, we'll get it up there. And Ryan is. I don't know why they got Kayla first, but never mind. Bertrand, make your case.
Thank you, Tom. Good afternoon to everyone. You probably know me for being a big admirer and lover of technology after having flown around the world on a solar-powered airplane. So I had to read very carefully the wording of the motion to know if I would be against it or in favor of this motion. And of course, I believe that technology is important, but obsession is very dangerous. And if you want to have a proof of it, each time you have a politician making a speech about the need of innovation, you have a lot of applause, but what does it mean after the speech? It means we need more innovation, more technology than what we have today, meaning, obviously, that we are not going to do anything today because we have to wait for the future. And this obsession of waiting for something we don't have today is paralyzes us. This is why I think we have to ask to ourselves, can we really solve the problems of today with the solutions of tomorrow? Of course not. We need solutions today, not more search for something like a lost paradise that is going to save us. But let's look what we have now. And now we have to ask the question, what is really technology? Because with technology, you can save the world or you can destroy the world. It depends how you use it. And who is using technology? Human beings. Which means that actually it is not the technology who can be the end solution, it's what human beings are going to do with this technology. And to give you an example, it's about geoengineering, for example. This is one of the main fields in which the ecologists, the activists, the NGOs are fighting against technology. We have to reassure them. Of course, geoengineering is dangerous. It's like playing with the fire. In French, we have this sentence, l'apprenti sorcier, the social apprentice. You are cooling down the upper atmosphere with nanoparticles in order to compensate the warming that we're doing by burning fossil fuels and emitting CO2. Of course it doesn't work, because this way to understand technology, this obsession to solve technological issues, is just an alibi to keep us doing more of the same, more of what is bad, more of what we have to change. Which means that nothing should justify to do business as usual. But it does not mean that we don't have technological solutions that are linked to the common sense, to what we have today available. Because with technological solutions, we are able to be more energy efficient. We are going to be able to have cleaner technologies, cleaner sources of energy. We have identified with the Solar Impulse Foundation 1,300 solutions existing today that are economically profitable and able to protect the environment. And this is something we have to show. Already today, we have everything we need to act now, maybe not to solve the entire problem, but to act now. So why wait longer? So technology, yes. Obsession, no.
Ryan. Bertrand says you are paralyzing. You are dangerous. You are obsessive. What say you?
We have to be more than obsessed with technology. We've got to be maniacally obsessed with it. And the one true metric for success is cost. So our charge is pretty clear. We have to put fossil fuels out of business. And it's a two-front war. We need to scale the deployment of clean technologies that we have today, as well as invent the ones we need for the future. Some lay blame to this crisis on our insatiable demand for energy. But let's face it, energy is what brought all of us here today. By plane, train, automobile. It's what keeps us warm. It's what lights up our offices, hospitals, and schools. It's also what helps us grow enough food to feed our communities. We cannot reasonably expect society to curb its energy demand Nor can we ask those without access today to sacrifice their development for the future. We must, in fact, expand energy access. But we need more efficient, more cost-effective, clean ways of powering everything. And until renewable energy sources achieve cost parity with fossil fuels, we cannot expect countries to make this transition. So to understand why cost is important, I'm going to share a few examples. Let's talk about Bell Labs, a group of bold technologists. In 1947, Bell engineers discovered that a material, silicon, was 15 times more powerful than its predecessor. They'd found an original green solution, but it was too expensive. Powering a home would cost $1.5 million. But thanks to sustained engineering ingenuity, persistence, or some might say obsession, that $1.5 million solar roof is only $20,000 today. A similar pattern with lithium-ion batteries. In 2005, when electric vehicles were hitting the road, the battery alone cost $60,000. Fast forward today, it's only $8,000. That 86% cost reduction is the single biggest factor making EVs affordable today and ending the internal combustion engine. So in researching Speed and Scale, the book I wrote with John Doerr, even though with the most aggressive emission cuts, the most aggressive, we're still going to be left with 10 gigatons of stubborn carbon in our atmosphere. And nature can help us here, but we can't count on trees to do all the heavy lifting. We're also going to need engineered solutions like direct air capture to sequester about 5 billion tons a year. But at $600 a ton, the annual price tag is going to be close to $3 trillion. And the economics simply don't add up. Yet. This is where innovation comes in. It's where technology comes in. Innovation drives down the cost of what Bill Gates calls the green premium, the added cost of the cleaner, greener version. So when the green premium hits zero and then inverts to becoming the green discount, market forces will make this transition to clean energy unstoppable. Every energy transition through human history was propelled by engineering ingenuity, as well as technological breakthroughs, making energy more affordable and therefore more accessible. And cost is the domino that triggers these transitions. In Speed and Scale, we also tell a story of a Danish company called Ørsted. This was a fossil fuel giant that supplied liquid natural gas. And when put under cost pressure, they turned to the seas towards offshore wind. And within 4 years, cut the cost of offshore wind by 60%, and now they own about a third of that global market. When 59 billion tons of emissions are someone else's business model, you have to fight it. You have to fight it with cleaner, cheaper, and better performing technology. So friends, technology is not an impediment to the green transition. It's an accelerant. We must obsess over technology or we'll never get to net zero in time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Ludmila and Kayla. So, Ludmila, driving things down the cost volume curve, like your phone, like this used to cost $10,000. What would be so bad if it cost $1,000? And we did the same thing for solar and wind.
Well, we need to reflect on the fact that technology is actually a reflection of our society. It's socially unequal, it's unevenly distributed geographically, and it's also unable to give us answers to all the social ills that we've been able to develop in our society historically. It is one that can give us a chance, a standing chance to address all the challenges related to climate change, but it cannot be the sole solution for all of the challenges we have. Let me give you 3 particular examples that can allow you to understand why it's important to think of technology as one piece of the puzzle, but not the full puzzle. The first is execution. All of these wonderful examples that were given by Ryan are there, and we should be proud. We've made so much progress as a society, as intellect, a united intellect, thinking of what we need to achieve ahead. But have we been able to distribute them across all of our planet? Have we been able to put money into things that actually can scale? At the moment, we have a portfolio of solutions, portfolio of ideas that solely can act as a prototype of acting on climate change. but they cannot be the sole proprietary answer to everything that needs to happen. The second challenge that we have is the actual ecosystem collapse that we're observing on a daily basis. For those of you that live in Europe and have experienced what happened this summer, I'm sure you have a lot of friends and a lot of family that has experienced the trauma, the natural disasters. All of this is there, and this is irreversible. When we're thinking about technology, we're always thinking about the future, about something that is going to be applied at scale, something that is going to be implemented by many. We need also to take the tough choices to reduce emissions and also to change the way we live our lives, but also change our mindsets about many of the things that we've been doing historically. This doesn't come with a magic wand. It doesn't come through a tool that you're going to click a button on. And then the final element that unites us here, and I think is incredibly important to consider as an argument for this discussion, is the topic of collaboration. All of us here are gathered at COP and have the wonderful opportunity to be thinking and talking about climate change extensively for 2 weeks. Who is invited to this table? It's the politicians, it's the business people, it's the NGOs, it's the scientists. Why? Because all of them have a part to play in this interplay that is dramatically changing and altering our lives. All of us have something to contribute, and the main and key component of this is related to the fact that we need the science to be able to understand what kind of solutions are going to work through technology at scale. We need the politicians that are going to be enabling the framework of policies to be implemented for us to then define a united action around how do we implement change and how do we apply it to a whole society. And we also, of course, need the technologies. I am the founder of a tech company, and I've been doing this for the last 5 years. But I stand here in front of you as someone that stands for this statement with the deep understanding that our society is going through a crisis that is challenging for us to define in many ways, but at least we've been able to get the data right, and we also understand that we have a lot of work to do. The only way forward for us to take the time that is left for us, 6.5 years, to really actively be participating in addressing climate change is by applying all the skill sets and all the capacities that we have together and united in understanding of what anyone can contribute to be able to address climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Kayla, do you believe in magic?
I do believe in magic.
Go for it.
So I actually wanted to kick this off by pointing out something which you may or may not have noticed, but I'm 22 years old. So not only have I grown up with technology, but technology has grown up with me as well. Within my lifetime, I've gone rapidly from payphones to brick phones to iPhones, but don't worry, I still know that stunning Nokia ringtone. But the point being that me and many people in my generation just don't know a life without technology. And all of us here have lived through an immense technological transition over the past few decades, which has got us to this point of having practically unlimited information at our fingertips 24/7. Technology has transformed our society. But what can technology do for the green transition? I believe that technology will not only not impede the green transition, but I believe that it will seriously help us achieve it. We already use technology in the fight against climate change every single day. It far from paralyzes us. We use it for monitoring our impacts, increasing the sustainability of our practices, and in climate adaptation strategies. For example, in Kuala Lumpur, in Malaysia, a truly beautiful country with absolutely stunning nature and biodiversity, flash floods are a serious threat, which is only increasing due to climate change. But in 2007, a new and transformational smart tunnel was opened, which can be used for traffic and as a stormwater tunnel during these events, saving countless lives and also costs due to damage and from emissions due to congestion. These communities are already depending on technology to fight the existing effects of climate change today. Technology has transformed their lives. Another example of where technology has and is aiding the green transition is through social media. Social media is a hugely important tool for organizing. Through it, we've seen the rise of fights such as Me Too, for Indigenous communities, for Fridays for Future and Black Lives Matter. All of these fights for climate and social justice, and they've all grown into massive global movements, built power, and held people accountable in ways which we never could have done before. Technology has brought us together. It helps us take back power and raise the voice of the people to a whole other level that didn't exist before. Another reason why we need to continue to obsess over technology and make it more accessible. Linking that power and opportunity is the access to education and climate research. Right now, I can jump online and access countless amounts of climate solutions and innovations just waiting to be implemented as part of the green transition. And this is important for everyone, not just researchers and decision makers. You don't have to look very far in the climate movement until you're able to find extremely knowledgeable and passionate youth. But what they know doesn't just come from school. It comes from all manner of online sources. Think YouTube, Moodle, podcasts. This level of climate education not only helps them make decisions throughout their own lives, but also helps them spread this through their families, their friends, their communities, and much further beyond. Technology has transformed how we experience the world. So folks, my opponents might talk about technology and climate change as if the whole discussion is centered around becoming dependent on fictional carbon removal technologies. But that's not the reality of technology and climate change today. We can revolutionize technology and our attitudes towards it, just as we must revolutionize every single aspect of our lives. We can do this through a circular economy and a move away from our current consumerist attitudes. The benefits of the technology for the green transition are already evident, and if anything, we should be more obsessed with technology in order to faster implement a green transition. So it's for these reasons that I'm asking you to vote against this motion, as our obsession with technology has transformed the world, and I have no doubt that it can and will help us to do it again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Gina? And Ulka will come to you after. Gina, who could deny a 22-year-old that kind of enthusiasm and passion? I can't believe you would, but go for it.
Only a professor can deny a 22-year-old. Tech isn't a magical solution to our climate crisis. It's part of the problem. 300,000 times. 300,000 times. That's how much more computing power today's AI, artificial intelligence models use compared to just a decade ago. Now, if any other sector was using energy at that rate of growth, we would demand change. And yet, here we are. Artificial intelligence needs cloud computing, but the cloud isn't green and it isn't in the air. It's made up of data centers and electricity, and those data centers are hungry. Amazon's emissions over the last year jumped 15%. And now they emit more CO2 than Chevron. Amazon. Now, why does this matter? Because Amazon owns half of the world's cloud computing infrastructure that's needed for high-tech solutions like artificial intelligence. Now, consider Facebook. Facebook is now one of the biggest consumers of energy on the planet, and their data centers now use 10 times the amount of energy from 8 years ago. Google, their energy has quintupled. I just love saying that word. Their energy use has quintupled over the last decade. And now Google uses more electricity each year than half of the world's countries. Now, these leaders in tech, these leaders in AI, they will tell us that we need these technologies for good. But we can't afford to use and keep spending and growing in such a fast rate. We can't have the keys to our climate future in the hands of one sector, especially when the tech sector alone is responsible for 2% of the greenhouse gas emissions. Tech's not the solution, it's part of the problem. Now, we simply can't throw climate at the tech, throw tech at the climate crisis and duck and expect change. In Hollywood, when the hero has a tech solution, right, he comes running with a computer program. But in the words of Greta Thunberg, we can't keep treating the climate crisis like a problem that needs to be fixed. What we need instead is not to simply wait for some guy to come along, like a tech repairman, like a climate repairman, to come along and fix the problem. We can't keep powering along like it's a problem that can be fixed. That's the problem. But the climate crisis doesn't have a Hollywood ending, and there's no hero coming to save us. Here's what we can do instead. We know what must be done now. Yes, part of the solution is 1,300 good solutions that we have now. And part of the solution is finding better technologies at cost and scale. But we must not wait for change. We cannot place our faith in technology like waiting for some climate repair guy. We can't wait for someone else to clean up our mess. What if instead we put our faith in ourselves and our ability to act? What if each one of us, alone and together, did something to stop the extinction of our planet? What if we pressed our leaders to work together to get to more ambitious climate goals and faster? And what if we put our faith in each other to really ensure that the big changes that are needed for the transition to the green economy aren't felt as sacrifices? Listen, I'm no Luddite. I'm a professor of technology and society. I run a center of technology and democracy. But tech won't work without the power of society and democracy. And so that's where I'm putting my faith, and I hope you will join me in voting for this motion.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Ulka, I know that you're remote, but Gina kind of just called your generation energy hogs because they're just consuming all this tech and basically, multiplying the problem, not solving it. What say you?
Thanks. Growing up in India, when we used to start a new school year, we'd open the first page of every textbook, and there would be one passage every year that we'd see on the first day of school. It was called Gandhis Talisman. And it said, whenever you're in doubt, recall the face of the poorest and weakest person you've ever met. And think to yourself whether the step you're contemplating will be of any use to them. And you'll feel all your doubts melt away. So the kind of technology that I'm going to talk about are not AI, not solar planes. It means simple things like being able to send remittance money home. It means a farmer's land records. It means better storm forecasts. Policies can create markets and drive down prices, but what about those things that people can't afford to pay for? All of you are at the COP in Glasgow, and technology transfer has always been the forgotten orphan child of the negotiations. We need to facilitate clean technology partnerships. Let's learn from the experience of vaccine inequity just earlier this year. This is not technology charity. We're talking about technology co-deployment, co-development. Change happens slowly and then all at once. Just as we've seen solar prices fall far more dramatically than anyone could have predicted, we need battery prices to fall. Otherwise, India, which just announced very ambitious renewable energy targets yesterday, won't be able to use the renewable electricity that it generates, and will have to fall back on diesel and coal. We need the prices of hydrogen electrolyzers to fall so that we can produce green hydrogen cheaply and truly decarbonize cement and steel. Policy alone can't do that. Individual action alone definitely can't do that. Rather, policy, individual action, and technology can together create a loop of ambition that truly accelerates the green transition. Like it or not, the green transition will also lead to a loss of jobs. And we need new green technology investments to create decent, dignified jobs for the millions who are entering the workforce. And technology needs to be done right. For example, when Ethiopia set its renewable electricity target, it also set a target to hire more women electrical engineers. And when it found that there aren't enough women electrical engineers in the country, it set out scholarships, fellowships, internships for young women students to enter STEM fields. People who argue against technology say that it's resource intensive, but lack of technology is also resource intensive. So we need things like drip irrigation, where farmers make every drop count. Yes, data centers are guzzlers of electricity, but put a data center in the Arctic and it won't need electricity for cooling. It will use the icy water from the sea. The real tragedy of Frankenstein's monster is not that he was an ill-conceived freak creature of science, but that he was misunderstood by humans. We need to be obsessed with technology, scale it up, make it affordable. It won't slow down the green transition. It will accelerate the green transition. Please vote with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Dorcas, you stay there. We're now going to let the teams retreat for a little bit or counsel among yourselves and nominate your best voice for the closing argument. But as you do that, we're going to invite our judges to come up and give an assessment, a critique, some advice as they put their heads together for how to make this work. I want to start with Astro Teller, who is head of moonshots at Google X. Astro.
Thank you. So, to both teams, a long time ago I was an entrepreneur and we were in a hard place. And I went over to our CTO and I said, you know, the rest of the company is not going to save us. What we have isn't good enough. I need you to go in the closet with a few other people and figure out something that's going to save this company. And then I went over to our COO and I said, you know our CTO is not going to save our company, right? We have what we have. We have what we have, and we need to make it great. Go sell it, go make it cheaper, but don't wait for him. I think both teams here have made good arguments, but I think there's a distinction that both teams could improve on about who is doing the obsession. I've heard your team, the four team, mostly say that technology is a good thing, and you just think if we over-focus on it, it's dangerous. Maybe if you argue they can be focused on it, they can even be obsessed about it. You just want the rest of the world, while cheering for them to go do that, to defocus on it, assume they will fail, and to pretend, assuming that they will fail, that you're going to have to solve it. But when you let your argument sound like you're kind of secretly against technology, I worry that you lose the audience. And on the other hand, I hope you can hear the argument they're making if you can be a little bit more generous in acknowledging, let us be obsessed. Let us have the funding to go in the closet and try to save the world. And then, don't count on us. Please go save the world the way you know how. If you give them that space, maybe they'll give you yours. All right, good luck.
Sephora. This is great, great advice.
Thank you, Thomas. Well, that was an exciting debate, and I think that the four sides made some really important points around urgency, around power, and around politics. Because, in fact, that's what we're discussing here today in a lot of ways, power in all of its forms. I was surprised that none of you addressed one of the critical issues here at COP26. We have wealthy countries who have made commitments this week, Norway, the UK, Canada, Australia, some big, large commitments, while at the same time also planning to grow fossil fuel production, oil, gas, and coal, because they're making big bets on carbon capture and storage, which haven't played out over the last decade. I think that's a strong point. You haven't talked much about that. I heard the against side making some pretty great points on how much technology has changed over the years. But I think you're failing to address the time crunch that we're in the climate emergency. We have to have emissions by 2030. And I think you're also failing to acknowledge that a lot of the solutions we have, those 13 solutions we heard about, are not being acted on today. The best technology that we have today for sequestering carbon? Probably the tree. Yet most of the governments, especially wealthy nations, and of course even nations in the global south, are actively deforesting and degrading old growth and primary forests around the world, even though we know we need that technology. So I would say that yes, market forces are important. I heard your arguments about cost, but that Danish company Ørsted also had support from their government, which is why they could do what they had to do. There is an interplay between policy and power and technology that you're not addressing at all. Ørsted had policy certainty for wind and a competitive tax environment that led in part to their dramatic change. But that was also because of the Danish government's leadership, which we've also seen here at COP26 with their announcement of the Beyond Oil and Gas Alliance and their commitment to not drill for more oil. The IMF said last month that fossil fuel companies are getting fossil fuel subsidies of about $11 million a minute right now on the planet from taxpayers' dollars. So, you know, in most countries, renewables are actually cheaper than fossil fuels right now, but they're not being invested in as heavily as fossil fuels. It's probably because of those distortions in the market. So right now, we are on track to produce 110% more fossil fuels than the world can never burn. And remarkably, in this climate discussion and technology, there was very little discussion of fossil fuels. My last point from the against side, access. Technology exists to light our homes, but the majority of the world's population lives in energy poverty, actually in the dark, not because we need a breakthrough in technology, but probably because we need a breakthrough in politics. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Faustine, one last judge commentary, and then we'll go to our wrap-up arguments.
So I've heard a lot of good arguments on both sides today, but I've kept hearing about technology, 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 as if this was one thing that by nature was good or bad. And actually, we've heard today about many forms of technologies. We've heard about AI, we've heard about renewables, we've heard about carbon capture, and all of those things have very different implications for our climate. So how about a bit more nuance? Which are the technologies that we really need to invest in the next 10 years? Because they're there, because they're close to competitive or already competitive like renewables, because they can make a real difference in the next 10 years. Which are the technologies that will be indispensable in the following 10 years? Because we can't continue producing steel, cement in exactly the same way as we do today. And we will need solutions for those sectors. We can't just stop producing steel and cement and stop building houses around the world. And which are the technologies that we need to be more careful about? Because maybe the potential isn't there yet, because maybe there are counter-arguments and risks with those technologies, like geoengineering, like forms of carbon capture, including enhanced oil recovery. So let's bring some nuance to that debate and think through which are the big bets we really want to make in terms of technologies. What are the elements that we need to make sure that those technologies are not just fancy things with fancy R&D projects here and there, but that we invest massively in those that work, and that we actually take the time to also think through what are the other things than technologies that we also need, like trees, to make very significant emissions reduction in the next 10 years. So with that 2030 perspective, let's screen and figure out which ones we need and which ones are perhaps less necessary today.
Well, this is the moment you came to Glasgow for. Final round. I don't know about you, but I'm really nervous. Buy a Tesla, plant a tree. Buy a Tesla, plant a tree. Team 4, are you ready? Have you found your advocate for your closing argument? Dun, 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 da, dun, dun, da, dun, 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 da, 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 dun, 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 dun. Ding! You're on. Team 4, go for it.
We're not judging whether tech is good or bad. We're judging if it's our obsession with tech that's going to slow us down from the change that we need, that we must have. Now, it's this obsession with tech that keeps us from focusing on power and politics. And it's this kind of obsession with thinking that there's a technical solution rather than the political and social solutions that will get us to solving this problem. It's our obsession with tech that keeps us waiting for something better, something new, something different, rather than working with the solutions we have at hand. It's our obsession with tech that has fueled the idea that the global north saves the global south. And it's really this obsession with tech that's been seen that we can just substitute things for fossil fuels. Like, we'll just keep burning fossil fuels because we've got tech to save us. And as my teammate Bertrand, who is an explorer and a psychologist, says, as we all know, obsession is a clinical disease. We have a clinical disease in our desire to have technology save us. And I'm here to say that technology without society, without democracy, will never save us.
Wow, that was a tough close. Yeah. Technology without society won't save. That's like if I have a solar-powered Hummer, I can drive it through the Amazon. No, that's not good. Team against.
Hello. So I think we're on some of the same lines here, but what it kind of boils down to for us is we have to create space for great policy, for great movements, for great people, for strong movements. But tech has to be there to meet us in the middle with the funding and strength to act quickly and to decarbonize the things which we really need that are so difficult to decarbonize. So things like sectors like concrete, steel, aviation, fertilizers, things that we can't do without but have massive carbon footprints currently. This is where we really need to act and really need to focus in order to get tech, and where tech can really help us do that. Technology drives down costs, allowing market forces to work, and most of all, as we've previously said, technology has transformed how we experience the world. It brings us closer, makes it more equitable, and drives a better future. Green tech investments can create new jobs and help us through that transition, but tech needs the access to funding, it needs the people, it needs the power and political will behind it to really thrive and get us to that good point where definitely all of us want to be.
Wow, I'm so nervous my mouth is dry. Now we come to the moment you came to Glasgow for, our high-tech judging by you, the audience. If you're looking for the button, there is none, okay? It's putting your hands together. First, how many of you clap, yell, whistle, shout, stand on your chair, whatever you like to express yourself? How many of you think the case for won this debate? Whoa, the meter really went, whoop. How many of you think the case against won this debate? Wow. Oh, and straggler. You know what? I'm going to call it a tie. A great debate. Thank you all very much. Thank you all.